What I'm filming with now is the DJI Osmo Action 4, the latest iteration in the Action series. And I think this is the camera we've been waiting for from DJI in this, action segment, because it kind of takes what they've been working on and almost perfects it. Because I guess the way to put it is, with the original DJI Osmo Action, it was kind of their first iteration into that. With the second, they tried to go with that, more modular design, which was kind of different from this. But then with the 3, they brought it back and gave you really solid hardware, but the image quality wasn't the best you could possibly get. With the 4, they're trying to kind of bring it all together. This has everything. And when I talk about better quality, I mean it. But it's not really from a spec perspective, at least not entirely. The Action 3 was able to do 4K, it was able to do it in slow motion, and well, the 4 can do that too. In fact, the specs are essentially the same on paper. But what changes is the quality of that 4K image. This is using a new 1/1.3 inch sensor, which is larger than what we had in the last generation, and it has an f2.8 aperture. And the sensor has bigger pixels so that it can gather more light, and well, that translates to better dynamic range and less noise, especially in situations like low light. But it doesn't really stop there. You also get better editing abilities, which is something I really care about. So the Action 3 introduced 10-bit support, which came about halfway through its life cycle, which was a great feature, and this one has that too. But now we also get D-Log-M instead of just D-Cine-alike. This is like an actual log profile instead of what you got before. But with this, you're getting that flexibility for color grading that log gives you. So that means I could turn an image that looks like this into this, although I wish this would make my grass green too, but hey, it's not that powerful. But this just gives you that extra layer of flexibility in your footage, which I think is always nice to have. Low light is one area that has always struggled with cameras like this, just because the sensors are so small and there's only so much you can do. But with the 4, DJI has really focused on that low light capability, and hopefully it's the best it's ever been. And I think that is the case. This is definitely better than what we got with the Action 3. I'll throw in some other clips. Right now, it is pretty dark, but it's not like pitch black or anything. It's about 8 o'clock on a summer day. So the sun is not fully down or anything, but it's definitely in the lower light than what you would expect like during the middle of the day. Obviously, you're not going to be working miracles here. It's still a very small sensor, but the processing is getting better and better, and it's getting closer to, being usable in low light. So you can, record more often and still get the shots that you want. Now, spec-wise, like I was mentioning, this camera has everything packed in that you'd want. So it records 4K at up to 120 frames per second, as a 155-degree field of view, which is, I think, the widest of all the action cams out there. And it has Rocksteady 4.0 and 4.0 Plus. So, from a video quality perspective, you are getting a top-notch system. And when looking at the quality, well, I think it delivers on it. Action cameras, I'm still kind of conflicted about them because they're such an interesting segment right now, because for most of us, we have our phones and those record excellent video, and for the most part is all we really need. But there are those situations where you might want something that's waterproof, that is shockproof, that if you drop it, you don't have to worry about it. And well, that's where an action camera comes in. But the question is, like, how often do you really need that? And for me, the answer is honestly not that often. What I like these cameras for is for a more portable, compact camera that I can put in places that normally you wouldn't be able to use. That's always been great with action cameras, but then the other side of that is the quality of them. They haven't always been the best. So when you're like matching with other cameras, you can clearly tell it's an action camera, but they are getting better and better. And I think with all the features built into the 4, it's kind of the closest we've gotten to, having the great image quality we've all wanted in a package that's this small. And in that package, the Action 4 is still the action camera you know and love from last year. It essentially is identical on the look side, but that's not a bad thing. You get the big screen on the back, you get the touch screen on the front, so you can, record yourself and still see everything. One of my favorite features is that on the bottom, you get that magnetic mount that just clips right in instead of having to use an external cage, although you can use one of those too. And the batteries are exactly the same as last year. It is a slightly less runtime due to the upgraded features, but the battery at least is the same. So if you had the Action 3 already and you're looking to upgrade, well, you could just use those batteries as well. The only real difference on the outside is that it says Action 4 and it is a darker black color instead of the gray. It also has improved waterproofing down to 18 meters over the 16 from last year. It works in super cold conditions and hot conditions. All of that is still here from last year, but you're just getting those extra camera features as well. Aside from that, you're not going to notice a difference, and I don't think it's a bad thing at all, because I think the Osmo Action is like the best when it comes to this hardware. It's solid. So the question, did DJI kind of accomplish what they were, trying to with this camera? And I think that yes, especially compared to the Action 3 and anything that DJI has made in this Action series before it, the quality here is noticeably better. And if you're someone like me who cares about that, you want things like being able to color correct, you want sharper and less mushy details with that 4K image, well, you are getting that here. But I think the other side of that question is, is it worth it compared to the competition or the other stuff that's out there? And well, I'll be making other videos on that, so stay tuned. But if you were in the market for a camera like this and you were looking at what DJI had to offer, well, the Action 4 is now the one to get, and I'm pretty impressed with it. And I'm glad that it seems the innovation iterations with this series is pumping back up again.